Everyone thinks the Amazon was untouched, wild, empty, an endless green world, too dense, too chaotic, too unforgiving for anything complex. But what if that's completely wrong? What if, right now, beneath that forest, there are cities, not small villages, not temporary settlements, but entire urban systems with roads, planning, agriculture, and millions of people who once lived there, hidden for centuries, right under the trees. And here's the strangest part. We didn't discover it by digging. We didn't stumble upon ruins. We discovered it by removing the forest without touching a single tree. Because underneath the Amazon, there's an entire lost world. And it's forcing us to rethink everything we thought we knew about human history. For decades, scientists believed the Amazon was one of the last untouched places on Earth, a place where nature dominated and humans barely survived. The logic was simple. The soil in the Amazon is surprisingly poor, unlike fertile river valleys like the Nile or the Indus. Most of the nutrients are locked in the plants themselves, not the ground. So if you cleared a forest, the land quickly becomes unusable. On top of that, the climate is intense. Heavy rainfall, flooding rivers, unpredictable ecosystems. So the conclusion felt obvious. Large civilizations couldn't exist here. Only small groups, constantly moving, adapting, surviving, and for a long time, that's exactly what we thought we were seeing. Scattered tribes, small communities, nothing that looked like cities, nothing that looked organized. And when explorers traveled through the Amazon, they saw the same thing you would see today. Trees, endless trees, no roads, no structures, no signs of anything large scale. So the idea settled in. The Amazon was wild, untouched, empty of civilization, and no one really questioned it. Then technology changed everything. Scientists began using something called Lidar. It stands for light detection and ranging. But what it actually does is much more interesting. From an aircraft, millions of laser pulses are fired toward the ground. Most of them hit the canopy, the leaves, the branches. But some of those pulses slip through the gaps and reach the ground below. When those signals return, they create a detailed map of the surface. And here's the key. The forest can be digitally removed, not physically cut down, but erased from the data. What you're left with is the bare earth, the shape of the land, without the trees. And when scientists started doing this over the Amazon, they expected to see natural terrain, rivers, hills, floodplains. What they found instead didn't look natural at all. Straight lines, perfect angles, symmetrical patterns. Things nature almost never creates. At first, it was subtle. A few strange shapes, some rectangular outlines. But as more scans came in, a pattern started to emerge. Entire networks, cities connected by straight roads, stretching for kilometers. Geometric earthworks, squares, circles, complex layouts, massive platforms, raised above the ground. And suddenly, it became impossible to ignore. This wasn't random. This wasn't natural. This was design. These were cities, hidden beneath centuries of forest growth. And not just one, hundreds, possibly thousands, spread across regions we once believed were barely inhabited. Some of these sites are so large that they suggest dense populations, organized societies, people who weren't just surviving, but building, planning, engineering their environment. And once scientists started looking closer, the picture became even more surprising. These weren't primitive settlements. They had systems, agriculture, but not in the way we usually imagine. Instead of clearing massive areas, they created raised fields, elevated sections of land that stayed dry during floods, surrounded by canals that controlled water flow. This allowed them to farm consistently in an environment that should have made farming difficult. They also built road networks, straight, intentional paths connecting different settlements. Not random trails, but planned routes, which means movement, trade, communication. And then there's the soil. In many of these areas, scientists found something called dark earth, a rich, fertile soil that doesn't naturally occur in the Amazon. It was created, built over time using organic material, charcoal, waste, a kind of engineered ecosystem, which means these societies didn't just live in the Amazon. They modified it, they understood it, and they shaped it to work for them. This changes more than just one region. It challenges a much bigger idea. For a long time, we assumed that complex civilizations only emerged in certain places, near rivers, in fertile valleys, in predictable environments. But the Amazon doesn't fit that model. And yet, these societies existed anyway, which means our understanding of how civilizations develop might be incomplete. Maybe complexity doesn't require perfect conditions. Maybe it requires adaptation, innovation, a different way of thinking. And if that's true, then how many other places have we misunderstood? How many times have we looked at a landscape and assumed nothing was there? Because here's the reality. The Amazon is one of the most efficient systems on Earth. It doesn't just grow, it consumes. Over time, trees spread, roots expand, structures collapse, and everything gets covered. Not destroyed, just hidden. Layer by layer, year by year. Until eventually, there's no visible trace left. From the ground, it looks untouched, like nothing was ever there. And for centuries, that's exactly what we believed. Because we were looking at the surface, and the surface was lying. And maybe that's the real story here. Not just that a civilization was hidden, but that it was hidden in plain sight, right in front of us, covered, but not gone. Which raises a bigger question. How much of human history is still out there, not buried deep underground, but simply invisible to the way we look? The Amazon wasn't empty. It never was. We just couldn't see what was already there. And maybe there are more lost worlds like this, waiting for us to finally notice them.